Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a pretty busy week for me at work, but the weekend's here. I get to record episode 2. Today's topic is about job roles and careers in the cloud. I know it may sound kind of strange because globally we're hearing stories of layoff and retrenchment, but I believe there's still lots of job roles and opportunities in the cloud as organizations continue their migration and pursue to a cloud and leveraging on cloud for advanced capabilities like AI, machine learning, and connecting to IoT devices. So we're going to continue the same format of having a conversation with Chat or ChatGPT, and let's ask Chat about what are the job roles and careers in the cloud. Okay, let's ask Chat the first question. What are the job roles in cloud? All right, so Chat listed 8 different roles: cloud architect, engineers, administrator, developers, operation manager, sales engineers, security engineer, and cloud consultant. So that's quite comprehensive. It sort of cover roles that is what we traditionally call the end user environment, i.e. you're the consumer of the cloud. You sort of hire assess a role like architect, engineers, administrator, developers, ops manager, or you are the supplier side of the equation. Maybe you're a system integrator, you're a cloud consulting company, you probably have a sales engineer and consultant. Security engineers or probably also cut buffet as well. So that's quite a good set of answers from Chat. Of course, you can always ask Chat for deeper questions around, give me a full job description of a cloud administrator. Let's not do that for now. I kind of want to zoom in on the particular role, the cloud developer role. The question I have is, what's the difference between a cloud developer and traditionally what we call a full stack developer? Here's the answer from Chat. Let's go through that. So a cloud developer is focused on developing and deploying apps in cloud platform. Familiar with cloud technologies such as containers, serverless, cloud native databases, and knowledge of cloud security and scalability practice. Full stack are really about the skills in both client side and server side development, front end languages like JavaScript, Node, React, Angular, and also back end languages like Python and Ruby. And they also need knowledge on databases, web server, and hosting environment. So it sounds to me, to be honest, Chat is describing a developer more like a DevOps engineer. So maybe let's clarify that with Chat. Your definition of cloud developer seems closer to DevOps engineer. Agree or disagree? Here's Chat's response. So say, apologize for the confusion. And you sort of elaborate what's a DevOps engineer, which is responsible for cloud software development lifecycle, infrastructure of application, deployment, testing, and monitoring. They work closely with developers and ops, ensure things are kind of deploy smoothly and applications able to scale. And they try to elaborate a bit more what's a cloud developer, which is kind of focused on developing application and developing and deploying application on the cloud. So you asked me, I'll beg to differ from Chat. I think it's for most organizations, it kind of makes sense to say, look, you have DevOps, cloud engineer, or SRE that does focus on deploying, supporting the entire software development lifecycle. And you have the full stack developers whom you train in a cloud. And that terminology of cloud developer sometimes can be quite confusing for many organizations. Now, another terminology that always confuses many people is the difference between SRE and DevOps. So I'm going to ask Cloud, what's the difference between the two job roles? That's a pretty comprehensive answer. So I think the Chat recognizes they're similar. They're both focused on improving reliability and scalability of application, automating deployment, scaling, and monitoring processes, as well as working closely with the development operation team. So that part is quite clear. The main difference, highlight that, is the focus of the role. SRE focus on reliability and availability, while DevOps engineers focus on software development cycle, including development, testing, and deployment. I think that's really quite clear in terms of segregation, the two different responsibility. I think Chat elaborate further. What are the SRE responsibility? I won't go through the 4 bullet points. And also the DevOps engineers' responsibility. Again, focus a lot more on software development lifecycle. And in summary, SRE focus ensuring the application is reliable, available. I will add secured. While DevOps engineers focus more on the entire SDLC. Both roles work closely to improve reliability, scalability, and security of the application. So that's really a good explanation. So it's very clear. Thank you, Chat. Well done. And let me do that. Send that message across. Cool. I kind of like interacting with chat with the response. One area that's kind of related to DevOps is called platform engineering. It's a little bit of a hot topic the last few years. So let's ask chat, what is platform engineering? Okay, again, pretty comprehensive answer from chat. So highlight a few key things here. It is a field in software engineering. That's absolutely correct. I agree with that. And it's about design, development, and maintenance of platform, which are software systems that provide a foundation for other software systems to run on. The way to think about it from the cloud world is how do you sort of build a layer on top of the infrastructure so they can deploy application solution much faster, right? Now, in the context of maybe are you building a Heroku or digital ocean like kind of solutions within your environment. I won't go to details of the responsibility of a platform engineers, but I just want to highlight some of the key activities platform engineering does. Design, implement architecture, develop, maintaining platforms, API, and SDK, maintain infrastructure and resources. That's kind of cross-cutting skills that's needed. Also, security and compliance, automation, and performance monitoring. To round it off, chat talk about it's a critical field because it enables development and deployment of other software, and it become increasingly important as more companies adopt cloud-based infrastructure and services. So it's an important consideration for especially when your organization adopt the cloud. Cloud does bring its sense of complexity, how you kind of build a set of layers on top of it so that you can really focus on building great application and not to worry about the plumbing and repeating work that you have to do. There is a bit of chatter in the online space about is DevOps dead because of platform engineering. I can't disagree. I think both they're slightly different things. You always need DevOps engineers to sort of deliver your platform engineering as well. So let's go on. Let's get back on track and talk about job roles in the cloud. So when you're starting off in the cloud or try to get in the cloud space, or you're trying to build a cloud team within an organization, it's quite important to ask the question: what are the foundational skills that's needed? For the guys starting, for the people, for the team that are starting. What do they need to get themselves going? So let's ask chat the questions. What are the foundation skills that's needed for cloud associates or someone just starting in a cloud career? Cool. So chat listed quite a few areas. I think 7 points. I think, of course, fundamentals of cloud computing that's essential. Understanding networking. I think that's really important. A lot of people stepping in the cloud, not knowing basics of IPs, DNS, and firewalls. That's quite a challenge for many people, especially their background is pure software or other non-IT related fields. So you got to level up the networking understanding. Security is essential. Cloud, a big part about cloud is about security. So you've got to understand the principles behind security. Scripting automation, that's especially the next hop from a cloud associate to say you want to be a DevOps or a cloud engineer, you got to have coding, scripting skills. We don't need to be a object-oriented C++, Rust, Go programmer, but minimally you get to at least to have Python or any other kind of scripting language. That's always useful as part of the skill. Storage monitoring, those are basics that you have. And certification. I think a lot of organizations is looking for certificate. I'm not a big fan of certification myself, but I will say it does provide a kind of basic and foundation for many people getting a few, at least for hiring employer knows you put some effort to get yourself certified and even invest in your own training as well. So that's not the full list. I think that 7 point pretty good start. But I think what's kind of missing in those lists is really around Linux and containerization. I thought these two are kind of basic skills that's needed today. So let's ask chat about it. Okay, let's see what chat got to say. So, yep, thanks. I'm correct again. Yes, Linux is essential, right? My encouragement for everyone to just pick up that basic skill sets of Linux administration, command lines, and stuff that bring you a very long way. Containerization is essential today. As we move to the cloud, today's world, we are less and less talking about VMs, more and more talking about containers, Kubernetes, serverless, and a whole bunch of high-level containerization solutions. So you've got to have that basic fundamental skills, and it's really good to know the skills for doing your simple basic project as well. A chat added virtualization. That's quite important to understand ultimately, whether it's container or VMs, they do work in a kind of virtualization environment. So you've got to understand the basic principle, how the kernel works, how microkernel works, and how does virtualization sort of sit on top of those foundational operating system. So those are essential skills as well. So I thought it's also essential for someone coming to cloud to understand development practices and the use of things like Git and Agile practices, so they can work well within the wider organization. Chat sort of explain what's Git. It's really a widely used version control system. I think that's probably the most popular one right now. Everybody uses Git. So there are Git is pretty much a version control system. The implementation of Git are things like GitHub, GitLab, or even Bamboo. So there are quite a lot of implementation of Git in today's world. So those are essential skills. Agile practices. Most teams today operate in a Scrum team or Liberation Kanban or Lean. So it's quite important that as a cloud associates or cloud engineers, you got to understand how all these software development practices. So such practices, as what Chad said, are important so that the cloud associates can collaborate and work with the other team members. And also understand the wider software development lifecycle. So just not all in the silo, but understand in the broader context, how does you fit in the engineering organization. Understanding security is kind of important to in the cloud space or any space today once you do with IT. So the question is really, as a cloud associate, how should one start when it comes to learning about cybersecurity? So let's ask Chat this particular question. 6 points. I think first one is understand the shared security model of the cloud. I think that's important to understand. In a traditional model, maybe an organization own the entire stack of hardware and software, so they own the full responsibility. In the space of a cloud, the underlying infrastructure, especially when you leverage on things like PaaS or SaaS services, are pretty much managed by a cloud provider. So I deal with the security layers kind of on top of that. So important, critical understand that the shared security model. Understand the cloud-specific security tools. There are tools that are offered by cloud provider or cloud-native tool. That's what we call them. And kind of understand how we integrate with them, how they work well together to provide you a better form of security and defense. But you still need a foundation. Point number 3, learn about the common security practices. The principle remains security best practices, least privilege, segmentation encryption, defense in depth, CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of services. So they are the same. The question is, how do you sort of apply to a cloud? Again, do get certified as well, as recommended by Chat. That's useful for employee to understand. You do put in effort to learn about those things. But join a community. I think, especially in the cybersecurity space, it changed a lot. It's important to sort of get plugged in with the community and learn by doing. I think that's the most important advice here. So one thing to talk about it. Go be hands-on, set up something, try to maybe attack it yourself, inject some vulnerability or use some scanners, and just learn by doing. To me, that's the most valuable way to pick up skills. One last fun question to end today's podcast. So my question for Chat is there an analogy between a chef and a cloud engineer? And let's see whether we can get some interesting answers from Chat. All right, there you go. Okay, so there is an analogy between chef and a cloud engineer. Both are responsible for preparing and serving meals, i.e. application to customer, right? Just as a chef, a cloud engineer must understand the ingredients, the infrastructure, networking, a whole bunch of stuff, and know how to use them to create meals that meets the customer needs. They also need to be able to adapt recipe or infrastructure to meet changing customer requirements and able to scale the meals, right, to deal with more demands of the customer, right? And able to work under pressure because the things changes along the way. There are operational issues, maybe there's more demanding customers or certain ingredients are not available, or there's a power outage and whatnot, right? Think on the feet and solve problems. So overall, both chefs and cloud engineers are responsible for creating and delivering high quality and reliable service to the customer, but in different ways. I think it's important as cloud engineer, we understand we don't serve the needs of the infrastructure, but to serve the needs of the application that runs on top of it. And those application ultimately serve the needs of the customers, the operation needs of the particular organization or business. So that's very important to understand the context. Just like a chef cook a wonderful meal to bring delight to the customer. Likewise, for cloud engineers, our job is to really run a wonderful infrastructure that can bring delight to our developers and the application that they develop and runs on top of our infrastructure. So that's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening, and I see you in the next podcast. Bye.